Hi, this is Trin Johnson and welcome to Dust in My Eye. If you like this video, please hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified about future videos, hit that cute little bell. Today's video is about capturing the colors of late fall in watercolor. I'm using this photo I took at our local Stony Creek Metro Park as a reference. First, I'm going to do a light sketch using a Caran d'Ache water-soluble graphite pencil. I really like to use these when I'm working in watercolor. I'm also going to be using Winsor & Newton art masking fluid. There are lots of ways to apply masking fluid, but I really like to use a ruling pen. I can get a nice thin line and a thick line just by adjusting the wheel. What I did not know till recently was if you loosen the wheel completely out, you can turn the pen and it makes it a lot easier to clean the frisket off of it when you're done. Surprise, surprise. I went ahead and put the frisket on earlier so that we could just get started. It's basically like drawing it on. I thought you could handle that without watching me do it. That's a pan I bought to mix my paints in. I really like it. Got it at Target. And this is one of my favorite brushes. It's a Quill brush. It's a Princeton Aqua Elite number 6. This is another favorite brush of mine. It's a silver black velvet oval 3/4 inch. I'm going to pop the reference photo up in the right-hand corner and see if it's worth the space it takes up. I like seeing the reference photo when I watch a video. So I'm using some Jane's Gray and Cerulean Blue to mix up my clouds and sky color. I'm going to work wet on wet, so I'm going to get my nice silver oval and cover the portion of the sky that I want to be able to paint in. I like to have a fuzzy line at the tree line. So I'm going to get a nice coat of water on and then make sure it goes beyond where I want the sky to actually end. I apologize for the left side of the paper being cut off. You're really not missing much though. Now I'm going to use my Quill brush to drop in my color. I'm going to start with the Cerulean Blue and the brighter blue and try and get that in first. I really like to take advantage of how the paint works on wet, how it kind of spiders out. Get some of the underclouds in. I want an interesting sky more than I want a sky that matches my picture. If it happens to match my picture, that's okay too. And you got to remember, it's going to dry lighter. So you always want to go a little bit darker. I like to pick up the paper and get some direction in the water. Kind of gives it a blurry, misty kind of feel. And just sop up the extra around the edges with the tissue. I'm going to go the other direction because I don't want it stuck on the branches, and it was getting a little stuck on the branches with the masking fluid. I like to use a plain old tissue to make clouds. Paper towel has a bit of a pattern, even the Viva paper towel, which is really very nice and doesn't have a lot of pattern. I still find I get a better, wispier, softer effect if I use a tissue, a facial tissue. Now I'm going to go along the bottom edge because I really don't want a hard edge. I want it kind of blurry. I'm going to sop some of the palette up because I really don't need the blue again except for the water. And I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. This is my favorite new color mix for late fall colors. It's Venetian red and graphite gray. These are both Daniel Smith watercolors. The Jane's Gray and the Cerulean were also Daniel Smith watercolors. And again, I'm going in with just water where the tree line is behind the birches. I like to mix my color up first for the most part, so that once I get that water in there, I can start applying the paint. I'm going to use a little tissue or paper towel there too, because I went over the edge and I want a crisper edge, unlike the sky into the tree line. Here I want an actual edge. You can get a lot of color out of those two different colors, depending on the proportion you mix them in. But I find it makes a nice overall dead leaf, if for lack of a better term, the gray, pinky color that you seem to get, at least in Michigan, where I'm from, at this time of year. I say that as we have our first snowfall laying on the ground, our first real good snowfall. We had a little bit a week or so ago. Again, I just want to drop this color in, and I want a little wet on wet action at the top, the little spidery veins when the paint hits the wet paper. It has a nice treetop kind of effect that I like to take advantage of. If I don't feel I'm getting enough of that, I can add some water to the top of the tree line. Because it's wet on wet, it will dissolve into the lighter color. Again, I use a little tissue because I don't want it darker in between some of the tree branches. I want it to look like it's the same behind the whole tree, not just like stopping. I'm going to mix up some green now. That's a sap green, again Daniel Smith sap green. And a little bit of indigo blue. That's also the Daniel Smith color. I think for this painting they're all Daniel Smith colors. And I'm getting a nice dark blue-green, which you can't see me mixing because it's off the screen. Sorry about that, but now you can see it. I'm going to drop some of that in while it's still wet. Add a little interest. Again, it will dry much, much lighter. We did a lot of plein air painting, my sisters and husband and I, this fall. Started when it was brilliant color, and that was its own set of problems to solve. And then when late fall hit, I hunted and hunted to try and come up with this pinky gray color. The other color that we needed to use a lot where we were painting was a golden grassy reeds in the water kind of color. And after playing around for a few weeks, I finally got a good color combination for that I like also. I'm making way now for some more colors at the bottom, because again, I don't need very much of that now. See, I'm going to take that. I've got a yellow ochre and a that's buff titanium, and I'm going to just hit the top of that where it's the very light yellow. On the other side of the water, there's a little bit of pond there and marsh. And I'm gonna go wet on wet again. You can see that it's bleeding down a little bit, but that's okay. Gives it a little softer feel. Just keeping it from bleeding too much. Lighten up some of the tree areas. I think I felt they were a little too specific. Just picking up some of the loose water. I'm going to work on the front part of the grass. I'm going to do that before I do the pond, because I'm hoping to have the grass bleed up into the pond. And being it so light, I decided to do this part first and then negative paint around the grass to a certain extent when I do the blue for the little bit of pond. Again, I'm working wet on wet. Don't really need to get the whole bottom of the paper filled. It's okay if there's some white. I kind of like that. What I am trying to do is get some variance in color. Just to make it more interesting. I'm not worrying about getting all the particulars of the reference photo in. There's a little dark band of weeds at the very bottom and over by the trees, and I just want to use that to give them the trees a place to sit on, give them a place to root and for interest. Do a little blotting with the tissue again, and now I have a really thin liner brush. It's a Telgraph. More on that to follow. I'm mixing up some yellow ochre and some Naples yellow with my little tiny brush. I'm going to paint in some grasses. Interesting thing about this brush is we took a trip to Chile, where my daughter-in-law is from. Not last Christmas, but the Christmas before that, and they warned us about taking anything wooden on the plane because you can't bring wood into the country, and they can use that to search things if you've got a pencil, possibly. There are stories. So anyway, my son said don't bring anything wood, so I couldn't bring any of my paintbrushes. So when we got to Chile, I wanted to paint and I needed to buy some paintbrushes. So we went to a little mall, a big mall actually, in Temuco, where her family is from. And I found these lovely paintbrushes at a office supply store. And I got 3 different sizes and I really, really like them. I'm not sure, I've never heard of them before. I don't know if they're very common, but anyway, it's kind of fun. I think of Chile when I use them. So I'm just going to get in some details with my little teeny brush. This is an interesting little brush I picked up in Ireland, in Dublin. It's a Vinci Caseneo, I believe. It's a number 6, and it has a big thick brush area and then a really tiny little point. So it's like it holds a lot of water, but the actual brush is a liner brush. It's kind of bunny shaped, but it was different and I thought I will try this out, and I do use it for those reasons. It holds a lot of water and it has a nice little liner brush at the end. I'm going to take my blue, a little darker version of it, and I'm going to negative paint around all the little grasses to a certain extent to get the pond in. I'm using a combination of painting in negative painting with the blue and painting the grasses back in, reinforcing them. I want a smooth edge on the top of the pond to contrast with the negative painting on the bottom of the pond where the grasses are. I'm going to speed the next part up a little bit. I eventually get out another brush, an Escoda Barcelona No. 6 round, and I use that to get some of the darks in, darker blues in my pond. I'm mixing up a dark red using the Venetian red and some sepia and the graphite gray. I think I threw some neutral tint in there also to do the weeds up front and the ones that are over by the trees a little bit. Just a little bit of a darker red. Again, I apologize that you can't quite see that corner really well. I do end up moving the paper and you can see it a little better. Just dropping in little dots for the little seeds and pods that are on the weeds. Give them some interest. I'm going to pull out my rubber cement eraser and get the masking fluid off where the birch trees are. I'm going to speed this part up because although it's kind of fun, it does take some time. Make sure your paper is absolutely dry before you take the masking fluid off, or you will end up taking off some of the paper along with the masking fluid. I got out some Holbein white gouache that I'm going to mix with, I believe it was the Naples yellow, to try and reinforce the grasses that were on the front side of the bank. I felt like the negative painting almost, doing the negative painting, I lost some of the grasses that I had in the first place, which I knew was going to happen, so I just want to get some of them back. I also get in there with the reddish brownish color to try and get some interest and some contrast in the grasses. Now I'm going to use some Lunar black, also Daniel Smith, and try and do some of the detail on my birch trees. I don't want too much paint on my brush because I just want to give some shadows and define the branches a little bit. I know you really can't see what I'm doing, but you will be able to tell in a minute. Changed brushes, went to my skinnier liner brush so that I didn't have too much paint. I'm just going through and, like I said, creating shadows, adding branches, adding interest, I hope. I don't want to get too detailed on the trees in the background. I would like to keep that detail for the 2 bigger trees, 3 bigger trees, the one, maybe, because those are my focal points. I'm going to get a little bit of a browner mix. I thought the black was a little bit too stark. I'm speeding this part up. I'm going to slow down when I get to the big main tree over on the right hand side. I think that one will be the easiest one for you to see what I'm doing, although I'll speed that one up too eventually. Now I'm going to get out a fan brush and use the edge of the fan brush just to get some of the markings on the birch tree. It's a micro mini brush I got in a set. Now I'm going to start on the big birch tree. Just getting some of the shadow side details, branches. I want some of the branches to wrap around in front, so I'm trying to determine which ones are going to do that and which ones are going to be coming from the side or behind the tree. I've discovered in my painting of birch trees this fall that the upper branches seem to go up, not quite straight up, obviously, whereas the lower you get on the tree, the more they are horizontal and seem to be reaching out sideways. I'm going to speed this tree up a little bit here too, because it takes quite some time to get all those branches in. I'm using my Quill brush again and the reddish mixture to tap some leaves on the tops of the birch trees. I used a liner brush to paint in this tree in the background, and I'm just reinforcing that tree. Don't know where the video of me painting said tree went. Kind of got lost in the shuffle, but now I'm just touching it up. I don't want your eye to get drawn right straight to that tree, so I'm trying to make it a little more subtle by kind of brushing it out with my 1/4 inch flat brush. And now I have a really pale mix of the brown that I'm using to put in the really background trees. All the forest, the woods that are just kind of hinted at in the background, with their treetops sticking up above the tree line, just to add some interest in the spaces where I don't want a real defined tree. Getting just a few little grasses in around the bottoms of the trees so that they're not just floating. I don't really want to draw a line, but I just want to hint at that differentiation from the grasses, the golden grasses, to the tree line. I'm using it on the closer side of the pond also to just add a little bit of interest. And now I decided that the birch trees were too graphic, and that really wasn't what I wanted. So I just have my 1/4 inch flat brush, and I'm just using a little bit of water to blur the lines on the trees. This takes a little bit too, so I'm going to speed this part up. And there we go, my first watercolor technique video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed painting it. And I thoroughly enjoyed all the plein air painting I did, trying to figure out my late fall palette. Not as vibrant as my peak fall palette, but equally as fun. And here it is, all tidied up for its photo shoot. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I'll have prints of this painting available for purchase at my Etsy shop, Dust in My Eye. And please check out my other prints, and my monsters too. Thanks for watching. See you next time.